Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
It wouldn't be the holiday season if there wasn't candy, right? Celebrate the holiday season with the Holiday Crush. They've sprinkled candy with a holiday theme and fun-packed challenges every week for 5 whole weeks, finishing on January 4th. The more challenges you complete, the better your chances of unwrapping delicious rewards. So, are you ready to crush the holidays? Play the Holiday Crush now. Download it from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht.
Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing, German football podcast from the Football Grad Network. I'm your host, Bryce Dunn. And joining me, as always, is Manuel Veth. Manu, how have you been?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, Bryce. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. How much longer have you got in Europe?
I've got another week and a bit. Yeah, it's good times. I'm enjoying it. I'm researching a big story on 1860 right now, so I'm having good fun.
Oh, exciting. And how are 1860 getting on these days?
Oh, it's a winter break, so, they're first in their table, and it's looking pretty good. Heading towards the relegation, promotion playoffs rather, at the end of the season. But yeah, there will be more coming to anyone who follows pretty much my Twitter account at the end of January, I believe.
Well, we look forward to hearing more about that project. But joining Manu and I is Chris Williams as always. Chris, how has your week been?
It's been very well, Bryce. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you too. So we've actually got no football games to talk about, have we? Still in the winter break, but there's plenty of other news going on, isn't there, Chris?
Oh, there is. Well, it's transfer silly season, isn't it? So I think we'll get to. There's always one saga, isn't there? There's always one transfer saga every single window, and I think we'll get to this window's transfer saga pretty much soon, but there's movement already like there is in Germany. They're not slow about it. They don't like to wait till the end of the window. I think we spoke this time last year, didn't we, about how German head coaches like to get their squads together early, so anybody that is going to go in or move out, anyone that's going to come in or move out, it happens round about now, because I'm sure listeners will know that Dortmund have already gone to their training camp. Bayern are on the way to theirs. So there's teams from Germany currently residing in the south of Spain and going more further afield places to do some winter training where the weather's a lot better. So coaches like to have their squads ratified by this time of year. So that's why we tend to see quite a lot of movements in the first week of January and not too many towards the end.
No, exactly that. So we're going to have plenty to talk about today, aren't we? So I suppose we may get to it. Oh, where to start? Let's start with Cologne. Cologne have obviously had a bit of a torrid time the first half of the season, haven't they? Sitting at rock bottom of the Bundesliga, and things do not look good for them in the slightest. It'll be somewhat of a miracle if they're able to pull things around. One of the main problems was goals. Only 10 goals so far in the season, which is the lowest in the league. So how do you address that? Well, you bring in a striker, and they've done just that in Simon Terode. He's come in and, well, they're going to be expecting quite a bit from him, aren't they, Manu? Or are they looking at, well, getting ready for next season? I mean, he's come from Stuttgart and he was somewhat of a goal machine for them last year, but maybe he's a Bundesliga 2 player, is he?
Yeah, he's got that reputation. Some players are like that. I'm trying to think if there's an English Premier League equivalent for some of our English listeners, but Simon Terode certainly is that kind of forward. He guarantees you tons of goals in the second division, and has consistently scored in the second division. And unfortunately for him, every time he's trying to make that jump to the top flight, it's just not quite happening for him. He's tried it at Köln actually before. didn't work out so well for him, and was a steady Bundesliga 2 player after that. I mean, he scored 25 goals for Bochum a few years ago, 2015-16, and then he scored 25 goals again for Stuttgart last season in Bundesliga 2. And then this season it was only 2 in 15 games, which is not a lot. And sometimes sometimes it's hard to make that transition from the bottom flight to top flight. And of course, Stuttgart play a very different game in the first division now than they did last year in the second division, right? They're more of quick transition kind of team, and last year they were the more dominant team, so they needed a break up front, and Simon Terodde is that kind of player. So I almost wonder if Köln, looking forward into the next year, are kind of getting ready for Bundesliga 2 football. I mean, Chris, we talked last week that there isn't very much of a chance for them to stay in, so it kind of makes sense for them to identify players now that could help them next year to get back to the Bundesliga. Yeah,
most definitely, because if you look at what Terodde has done so far, it's not been the best of season so far for him, as he's got 3 goals and 2 assists in 17 fixtures, including Bundesliga and the Pokal. So I don't think they've signed him expecting him to go out in the second half of the season and bang in 10, 15 goals and drag them out. So it's probably one eye to the future, which I suppose if you think you're already relegated, and let's not beat around the bush, Cologne are desperately in trouble. And I think everybody now knows, and it's probably dawned on them down in Cologne, that it's going to take some sort of divine intervention, miracle for them to escape that. So I think it's really positive that they're planning now, because it means they'll be able to get their squad together early and then push on from the summer onwards and not be left trying to scrape a squad together to fight in Bundesliga 2. They need to be ready as early as possible to get the best pre-season, to go out and I'm sure they'll want to win the league and come straight back up, maybe not spend more than one season out. So if they're starting to build for it already, I think that's commendable.
Yeah, they don't think they're going to be done with this either, Bryce. There's talk that they want to bring in a deep-lying midfielder and someone for the wing to feed Terodde, I guess. And we don't know. I don't really know who it could be, but I guess any kind of transfer, again, would be with an eye on who could help them next year. So prospective players, maybe, the kind of players that are looking to get some Bundesliga action now, but knowing that next year will be likely a Bundesliga 2 season for them.
I think they're going to have to identify a few players, because I don't think they're going to see a mass exodus. They probably won't want many to leave, but I think Hector will probably be leaving, won't he? That's a given. And Timo Horn's a brilliant goalkeeper. I can't see him staying in Bundesliga 2, even though he's a Cologne man through and through. He's too good to go down. So I'm sure they'll be a little bit short. They may even do something like get rid of John Cordoba, because I'm pretty sure that he could get some money in and stay at a club, someone like Augsburg, again, perhaps, but you never know.
Yeah, I heard that all Cologne players have contracts for Bundesliga 2 at less wage, less salary, quite significant less salary. So Köln have been smart, unlike in the past. This time around, they knew that something like this could happen, I guess. So every single player on the Cologne squad has a contract for Bundesliga 2 with a smaller salary, so that they can adjust it. But of course, there will be offers for the likes of Hector, for Horn, and I'm pretty sure Köln will do the most to capitalize on those kind of players to bring in, to kind of rebuild a little bit like what Stuttgart did last year when they went down to Bundesliga 2.
And if they do go down, Stefan Rothenbeck, do you reckon he'll end up staying there, Manu?
Yeah, I guess it all depends on how they see out the season. And, if they continue to be terrible, like they have been, it'd be hard for him to stay. But let's say they give it a go and they win 5, 6, 7 games and maybe more, and, get a decent amount of points. The kind of points that you expect from a half season. They will say, well, you did a good job. You were basically given a hopeless job, but you did the most out of it. Let's go with you into Bundesliga 2. But if they have a Rückrunde like they had a Hinrunde, there's no way he's going to be able to stay.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, well, I suppose that more or less sets it up for Cologne. Hopefully, they have a better second half to the season. But well, they couldn't do much worse, really, could they? Than the first half. But let's move past them. Let's move on to more transfer news and speak about Freiburg. They've signed someone from Sandhausen, and that's Lucas Holler. Chris, I gotta go to you. Do you know much about Lucas Holler? I'm gonna be honest, and I know very little about this youngster.
Yeah, very little, because he spends most of his time in or around the lower leagues and the second team side. So the likes of Mainz's B side or number 2 side. But they're looking to bring players in. Of course, it's going to be a hard one for them, because I'm not really sure where this guy's going to fit in, if he's going to be able to make a big difference for them. I'm pretty sure that Freiburg will be happy if they tread water and they finish mid-table. That'll be a great season for them. It's just a shame that it's nowhere near the season it was for them, like last season. But they've taken a couple of players on loan. It's not really worked out, so possibly it's best that they bring in players who they know can perform well.
Yeah, it's not a bad signing, Bryce. It's a young striker from Bundesliga 2. He's got 7 goals this season already in 16 games, so that's not a bad return, and they have been very good in the past finding. I have to admit, I don't know very much about him myself, but I trust Christian Streich, our man of the year, our coach of the year, that he has once again found a gem in Bundesliga 2, and that's what Freiburg are very good at, identifying players in Bundesliga 2 and bringing him to the next level, and I'm pretty sure they see something in him that could make him another really good signing for them.
He has a goal every 185 minutes, Bryce. I mean, if you can replicate that for Freiburg in the Bundesliga, I'm sure they'll be ecstatic with that.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it seems like he's got 7 goals and assists so far for them in Bundesliga 2. And if they could get anything near as good as what Schalke got in Burgstaller this time last year, I'm sure they'd be delighted. I mean, is that what they're kind of hoping for, Manu, do you believe?
Yeah, something similar. I mean, Burgstaller's goal scoring rate, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, it was 16 goals in 15 games, or was it 15 goals in 16 games? It was insane in Bundesliga 2.
It was a lot better than the return that Holler's got at the moment. But yeah. I think we all knew, everybody knew, didn't they, really, that he would make that step up.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, Burgstaller was a bit more experienced, too, right? So we're going to talk about another Schalke signing from Nuremberg later down the pod, and we can sort of point out some of the differences between the two. And I think this is the same for Lucas Höller. He's a very promising Bundesliga 2 striker, but he does not have the same kind of goal scoring rate that Burgstaller had last year, and he doesn't have the same kind of experience yet. But that doesn't mean it's a bad signing. Quite the contrary. I'm pretty sure that Freiburg have unearthed another gem there.
Yeah, they'll be certainly hoping for such success. But guys, let's move on, because we've got plenty to cover today. Chris, I'm going to go to you for this one. What's the latest deal with Reece Oxford's? There seems to be almost a few games going on here. I mean, there was claims, wasn't there, on certain outlets that he was off to RB Leipzig. I mean, what exactly is going on here? Is he going to sign for Gladbach?
Well, that was the first thing that broke, really. We knew that Gladbach were interested in making the deal permanent, but it was the BBC who said that West Ham would recall him in January and then he would move to Leipzig. Leipzig moved pretty swiftly to say that they'd had no contact with West Ham surrounding Reece Oxford, but I think it was the very next day West Ham announced he would be going back. Obviously, West Ham are in a little bit of trouble in the Premier League, and they need all the help they can get to drag themselves into a safe position so they're not relegated next season. Reece Oxford's a fantastic talent, and he's well thought of at West Ham, so I think they wanted him to go away and develop in a league where that gives youth opportunity to develop. Everybody knows that's Bundesliga. I don't think they expected him to play as well as he did, because the games he's featured in for Gladbach, he has played very well, but especially for his age and for a young man that's trying to adapt to a new country and a new league. He settled very, very well. Now, obviously, David Moyes has seen that this is a big plus for him if he was to bring him back. But Gladbach have said that they want to make the deal permanent. They've come out and said that officially, not through journalists or through back channels. They've actually come out and said, they want to make the move permanent. So I don't really know what's going to happen with him. West Ham are in a tricky position because a lot of their fan base know that Reece Oxford is a good player. It's not just like he's a youth academy player who no one's ever heard of that just went out on loan. So, we've seen that before, youth players going out. They're not really known. Maybe he's going to be a good player in the future, don't know much about him. But West Ham fans know a lot about Reece Oxford. So I think if they were to sell him, they might not be particularly happy. So we'll just have to wait and see. But it was interesting that the BBC went with the story of Leipzig. The BBC's the BBC. They're not going to go off on a whim. They would have had to have some sort of information. And I don't know, the fact that he was recalled the day after they said that he would be recalled and Leipzig were interested, it's just something we'll have to keep an eye on. But he is an exceptional youth talent, and I'm pretty sure Gladbach will miss him. Personally, for him, he probably wanted to stay. Well, he was stay. He was very happy to make it permanent, by all accounts, speaking to people in London, and also looking at the media across Germany. He's spoken to people in the past. He was happy to stay there. It's just he's been called home by his parent club.
So basically, the BBC heard a German club is interested in him and assumed it was Leipzig. No, jokes aside, I think this may have been leaked on purpose to better West Ham's negotiations, right? Because West Ham need to, from what I heard, West Ham need to make a couple signings to survive in the Premier League. So they know that they have this bargaining chip in Reece Oxford, and the original price was 6.8 million euros, I believe, to bring him permanently to Gladbach. That has now gone up significantly. So my guess is that this was all a big negotiation plan by West Ham, and then they leaked this, and right away Gladbach upped their offer, so it worked. And usually when the player really wants to stay at a certain club and says, like, I want to stay in Gladbach, I want to develop at Gladbach, I want to stay there permanently, it really is up to getting the negotiations done, right? And I think what we're seeing right now is basically West Ham and Gladbach finding the right price that will make everyone happy. I'm pretty confident Oxford will stay at Borussia Mönchengladbach simply because Borussia Mönchengladbach want him to stay and he wants to stay there. Yet it's football, nothing is ever certain, but that's just the general sense I get.
Manuel, may I just ask, what were the numbers that were floating around for Reece Oxford? I know he's highly rated, but were they large figures?
Well, what was the Leipzig deal, Chris?
That was 19 million euros, which is a hell of a lot of money for a Bundesliga transfer.
So Gladbach are now offering 11, and that seems to be around the number that West Ham want as well. So I guess we'll see. I think the 19 million were basically floated on the news because of the original deal by Gladbach. So they offered 6. Then all of a sudden, Leipzig came in supposedly with 19 million, and then the next offer by Gladbach was quite a lot more. So I think this is all just back and forth between the two clubs right now.
So just to finalise on Reece Oxford, how close is the deal to being done? Has it been finalised yet?
No, by any means. Gladbach are saying that they're negotiating. And this is, as Chris pointed out, this is the official word. This is not through media, etc. I believe there was even a tweet sent out, right, Chris?
Yeah, it was by the Gladbach's official English account. Said that they are trying to make the move permanent. So there's something in the background, but West Ham will try and get as much money as he can, as Manu said, because they need to bring signings in because they're pretty much in trouble.
Yeah. So we'll go by that, Bryce. They're talking.
Let's see what happens. We'll obviously cover it when he does get if he does get a finalised move, right? But let's leave him alone and move on to the next topic. As I said, we've got plenty to go through. We're going to talk about Mainz now. They've just signed a new striker, someone that's used to German football as well, but has been spending some time in China and Nigeria, and Anthony Uja. He spent some time at Cologne, also Werder Bremen. He's been at Mainz before. Manu, what type of player are they bringing in here? I know that he's Nigerian, he's 27, but I don't know much else, if I'm honest.
Yeah, he's pretty big in the Bundesliga a few years ago, and playing for Köln, playing for Werder Bremen, and actually playing for Mainz as well. But he had his big breakthrough at Bremen and Köln, and Bremen then sold him to China. That was at the beginning of the big China craze, a year ago, 2 years ago, almost a year and a half ago, and Werder Bremen got a lot of money for him. They got 11.5 million euros for him, and this was, at a time when players like him could be enticed to go over there. And things didn't work out so well for him in China because his club Liaoning FC got relegated, so that left him open to leave China, and he really wanted to return to the Bundesliga. Mainz get a player that knows Mainz. So this is one thing that's quite positive. He knows the club, he knows the Bundesliga quite well. They get a player who knows how to score goals. He was always a very fun player to watch, Bryce, when he was around last time. And there's been a lot of talk about players going to China and digressing in their performances. But we have Paulinho. That's one of the big stories. He's gone to China, right? And he's now at Barca, and he's one of their best players. So going to China and coming back to Europe is not necessarily a bad thing, especially as it seems the players coming back to Europe seem to appreciate European football a little more. So I think this is a hell of a good signing for them. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with him, and then if he develops well at Mainz, same trajectory he had at Werder before he chose to go to China. He might not stay forever at Mainz. He could be one of those players that have a similar impact than Anthony Modeste did.
Manu, just talking about, he's obviously been to clubs before in Germany. He's been to Cologne, he's been to Mainz, he's been to Werder Bremen. Do you think that Werder Bremen possibly should have made a move like this? Looking at the table, looking at the stats, a little bit like Cologne, they've really struggled for goals. They've only managed 13 in 17 games. Is this something that would have made sense maybe for them to go back in for as well? Someone that's familiar with the club.
Yes. Bremen are looking to bring in a striker. Apparently, so this could have been an option for them, but Mainz had the money, and I guess Mainz have the system that fits him well too. I think Bremen were actually one of the clubs interested in bringing him in, Bryce. So that's a good point. I think there would have been several clubs interested in bringing him in, but maybe because his exit from Werder to China wasn't the cleanest. Similar story than we saw with Modeste going to China. Transfers to China always seem a little messy. So I guess that was maybe the big no in the end, and why he went to Mainz instead.
And Mainz getting a good player, Bryce. He was consistent his last 2 seasons in the Bundesliga. He played 32 games for Cologne and then the same for Werder Bremen, and he got 10 and 11 goals over those 2 seasons respectively. So his stats when he played for Cologne are pretty good. 102 games, 36 goals, 10 assists. I'm pretty sure that Mainz will be very happy if he can replicate the sort of form he showed between seasons 14-15 and 15-16. So it will be a good signing for them, and maybe Cologne will look at, maybe it's one that's gone missing.
Yeah, and it's actually, he was good at Bremen too. 11 goals, 5 assists. What stands out is he's not a pure goal scorer, right? He also sees the players around him. So, I think all around, Mainz are getting a very good player.
One gift that never gets returned? Trick question. It's 3 gifts: beer, wine, and spirits. And with Drizzly, you can send the gift of drinks right to your loved one's doors. Drizzly lets you compare prices from local liquor stores on a huge selection of beer, wine, and holiday spirits, then get them delivered right to that lucky someone's door in under 60 minutes. And right now, Drizzly is giving customers $5 off their first order. Just enter promo code JINGLE at checkout. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com.
Yes, indeed. And it could be all the difference when it comes to that relegation battle as Mainz are sitting down in 15th. We'll just have to see how that one plays out. But it sounds like they've got an exciting player. Manu, may I just ask, how much have they paid for Yuja?
I heard 3.8 million euros, which is pretty decent today's market.
That could be a steal. If that keeps them
steal.
up, drags them up the table a little bit, that could be money well spent, actually.
And he's only 27, so there's a lot of time. There's still a lot of football left in him, too. So, I think he's a steal. Another club that was actually interested in bringing him, Bryce, was Hoffenheim after they lost Sandro Wagner. They were interested in bringing him as well. So, there was a lot of clubs looking at bringing him back. So, he's still a player that has a very good reputation in Germany.
Yeah, seems to be quite a popular player. I look forward to us seeing how he gets on. But guys, let's move to Stuttgart next. We spoke about this one briefly before, didn't we? About Mario Gomez. But let's talk about it a little further. Stuttgart, we said that they have had a pretty good season. Newly promoted. Went a little bit off the ball towards the end there without getting a win in their last 5. But how do we feel this move is going to be, Chris? I mean, Mario Gomez, he's been around. He knows where the back of the net is. Do you see this as a good move for Stuttgart?
Yeah, I do. I mean, there's really little you can say on Mario Gomez that isn't exceptional. Look what he's done. He's Champions League winner with Bayern. He's won 2 Pokals. He's won the Bundesliga 3 times, one of them with Stuttgart way back in 2007. But key for this move is he's been a top scorer in 5 different areas. So it doesn't matter what league he played in. He's with Besiktas, who's a top scorer. Then Fiorentina, who's a top scorer at the Euros a few Euros back. Bayern, and he's been Stuttgart's top scorer. So this is a really, really good move for them. I think we spoke last time, didn't we, on the last pod, that I was in Stuttgart for the last game when they played Bayern, and what they were missing that day was someone who could put the ball in the back of the net, and they could have won 2, maybe 3-1. So it's a really good move for them, and I think he's the sort of player that will go and he'll galvanise everybody in the dressing room, he'll galvanise everybody in the stands, and it'll give the club a real lift. Not that it needs one particularly, but he will give them a lift and to push on and move higher up the table and maybe achieve as high as they can possibly go. And I think it's a really, really good move for him. And he's 32 now, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is his final move as a player. And I don't think there's any move you can make better than going back to the club where you started as an under-17 player.
This is a really good move for Stuttgart, and it's possibly the move of the winter transfer window. I think it's the biggest name move, not the biggest move in terms of money spent. Stuttgart only paid 3 million euros for him, which I think is actually a steal. But in terms of marketing potential, the terms of how good of a player he is, this is a massive transfer for Stuttgart because, Mario Gomez is in Germany. He's one of those sunny boys. He's someone who's in a lot of TV commercials. He's someone who's ever present. He is a striker when on form, guarantees you goals. I know this season wasn't good by him, but I think he was hurt quite a lot. He only scored 1 goal in 12 games, but he kept Wolfsburg in the league last year. Something that you have to remember, right? And I think he just needed to go home. That's something he said quite often in many statements. He needed to go home. And another thing that he said, this doesn't speak well for Wolfsburg, Chris. And you've been to Wolfsburg, you've been at the relegation game there. He said no matter how he played, someone always would compliment him every game. Even if he had a poor game, someone would compliment his performance. That doesn't really speak for very much for Wolfsburg, does it?
I think it might speak for Gomez's stand-in, and maybe they didn't want to upset him because he's not that type of player who would, he's not going to take to social media if he doesn't get a birthday cake. He's not Yaya Toure, is he? I don't think he's going to get mad like that. But maybe sometimes you just need to hear it if you're having a bad game. But then again, Wolfsburg, who's going to criticise Mario Gomez? Because it is Mario Gomez. He's been there, he's seen it, he's done it. He's done it at German level, as I said. He's done it in Italy, Turkey. He's done it in the Euros. He's been there and seen it and done it. So maybe they were a little afraid of upsetting him. But I don't know. Maybe if you're striking a rut, sometimes you need someone to put your arm around you and either give you a lift or give you a telling off. And maybe you didn't feel like he'd get that. But I'm with you, Manu. This is an absolutely brilliant move for him and the club and the whole city, really.
And the league. I actually think this is a brilliant move for the league because, no offense to Wolfsburg, but Wolfsburg is the sort of club that you kind of forget sometimes, unless they do something really extraordinary. But Stuttgart is such a big club. People forget that, and we both have been to their stadium recently, right, Chris? And it's a huge stadium. It's a fantastic crowd. Stuttgart are a sleeping giant. If there is a sleeping giant in German football, it's them and possibly Hamburg and Berlin, but they are a sleeping giant that is currently being kissed awake. And I think for them to reach their full potential, they have to stay in the league this year and bring in players like Mario Gomez, players that can sort of get the team uplifted, but also get the city uplifted and get everyone going and get everyone excited about this project. And he will do exactly that. So I think it's actually a move that's not just good for the city, the club, but it could be good for the entire Bundesliga.
Manu, is this a move that he would possibly be making, looking to get involved at one final World Cup?
Well, that's what he's saying. That he's actually done the move to get to the World Cup. He'll be guaranteed playing time in Stuttgart, and I think that Stuttgart system suits him quite well. He's a big lad, but people forget that when he was at his best, he actually played counter football because he's quite fast. He's someone who likes to break the lines. He likes to play between the lines, and people keep forgetting that because they see this really big guy, right? 1.90 meters tall, but he's actually also really fast, and he kind of needs to play for clubs that sit a little bit deeper and can sort of break through the lines and also receive higher balls that he then can convert. So I think for him, this will actually be a move that will help him because it will give him a lot of playing time in a system that he likes. And, someone like Reschke, the sporting director, or Hannes Wolf, the coach, they'll bring in a player like that, knowing what kind of football they want to play. So I'm pretty sure that they will design the way Stuttgart are going to play in the Rückrunde with Mario Gomez in mind.
I suppose as well, looking at it from a German international point of view, we've all said that Timo Werner, he's got to lead the line, hasn't he, going into the World Cup? But does he offer them a good second option up front as well? He's a bit of a different player. I know you said he's quick, but no one's quite as quick as Timo Werner, it seems. Does this option almost come out as a plan B for Germany in the World Cup?
Well, we now have a plan. At Euro 2016, we only had Mario Gomez, and he was good at the European Championships, but the problem was when he got hurt, there was no plan B. Now we don't have that problem because we have plan A, Timo Werner. We have plan B, probably Mario Gomez, and we have plan C, Sandro Wagner. We're going to talk about Sandro Wagner in a moment, but there is a lot more options up front than there were at Euro 2016. You remember that game against France, Germany lost because they couldn't find a way through. They couldn't break between the lines. They couldn't break through France's defense. And then, a silly mistake by Schweinsteiger lost them the game. And I think now they have a lot more options up front. And there's probably a couple more options that we don't even see yet because, you usually in the Rückrunde, one or two players will break through and become an option for Joachim Löw. But, I reckon that the three strikers that are going to go to the World Cup are going to be Sandro Wagner, Mario Gomez, and Timo Werner.
That's not a bad lineup, is it? Not bad at all. Okay, guys, I think we've covered Stuttgart, so we move on to Schalke. Schalke have been busy. They've signed a new striker, and they like to poach some from Nuremberg, it seems. The latest one is 20-year-old striker Cedric Tuchart. Chris, what type of player are Schalke getting here? And, is it comparable to Bergstaller, which we mentioned earlier?
That's the easy comparison, isn't it? So I'm going to say yes, because that's the easiest, and we can move on. No, I'm only joking. He's a similar sort of vein, isn't he? He's Nuremberg born and bred. He's had a particularly okay season. He's not got the same sort of stats that Burgstaller had last season, but I think we were all in agreement that Burgstaller had a standout season. So far, 17 games, 15 in the second Bundesliga with 2 Pokal games, and he's got 6 goals and 2 assists, which is an average 119 minutes per goal, which again is pretty good. But can he take this level up a gear? It's a completely different league. I know we often say that the 2 leagues are very tightly matched, but there is a difference when you step up to the senior league from Bundesliga 2. So I'm not sure if he'll hit the ground as fast as Burgstaller did, but I don't think he's going to be hitting the ground the same way that Burgstaller did. So, he's a very young lad, really, isn't he? He's still only 20 years of age, so he's probably 4, 5, maybe even 6 years off his prime. So, Schalke have probably bought for the future, I would hazard a guess on here, and maybe they're looking at potentially dripping him in next season and being ready for the season after, which shows some long-term planning for Schalke, which I think they've been missing in previous seasons. I think that didn't help them when they fell out of the Champions League, and that's obviously something they want to get back into. So planning for the future now is a very good thing to do. He's a German under-21 international, so they're getting a good pedigree of player. I think he could be fed in slowly. I think he could do a good job. He may get a few substitute appearances, I think, the back half of this season coming, and then we'll see where we are again. But, they've only paid, just €1 million for him, isn't it? So he's not going to break the bank. So this is definitely one for the future. But his stats suggest that he could potentially good. I mean, when I've seen him play for Nuremberg, he has looked good, but I don't think he's going to make the same sort of impact that Burgstaller did, but then I don't think he's been bought for that reason.
Yeah, Chris is right. This is a project, Bryce, but it's an exciting project. I think Schalke are fully aware that this young lad, he's only 20, will not break into the side right away, and he's going to get plenty of time. But I think what speaks for him is that Domenico Tedesco really, really wanted him. Really wanted to sign him now, because they could have had him on a free transfer in the summer. So, spending that kind of money, yes, €1 million isn't a lot, especially when you consider the development potential, but they could have also had him for free, right? So they wanted to bring him now, and my guess is that they wanted to bring him now so that he could get used to playing for the club slowly, because next year we all reckon they will be back in the Europa League, Champions League, likely Champions League, I would say, where they will have a lot more football, so they can kind of ease him in, right, Chris? And then having that those 17 games till next summer is almost like a luxury, isn't it?
Oh yeah, most definitely, and they can pick and choose now when they want to drip feed him in. So if they're having a particularly good game and they're maybe 2 or 3 up, they bring him in. Or if he doesn't feature at all, what he is going to get is a benefit of sitting on the bench and being around professionals that have played at a higher level and in a more higher intensity stadium, so to speak. That Bundesliga 2 stadiums are exceptionally intense. So it's going to be in that area, and don't forget they're going to be planning for going back into Europe next season. So we could see him play more games in the Bundesliga next season if Schalke are in the Champions League, because they need a deeper squad. We all saw what happened to RB Leipzig this season, because their squad's just a little bit shy on depth. So this is probably why Tedesco wanted him quickly, because he's probably been keeping an eye on the likes of Leipzig and maybe even Hoffenheim, who didn't even get past the qualifier. So this is a very, very good sign for Schalke. I think we've said it over the last couple of podcasts that get the feeling, after we dissed Tedesco and said he wouldn't last 5 matches, we get the feeling now that he's starting really building something credible at Schalke. And, dare I say it, if Dortmund don't keep trying to push on and catch up, there could be a shift in the power balance in that area soon.
Oh, we're never going to eat those words, right? No, Tedesco is doing a fantastic job at Schalke. They're building something special, and I think we have to also laud what Heidel is doing. I think he's finally gotten used to the culture there a little bit. He had a year that wasn't great last year, of course, and he fired Weinziel. He brought in Tedesco, knowing that this move will be criticized, including by us. I think that was probably the thing he worried the most about, that we would criticize him, and we did. But he's proven us wrong, so that's pretty good. But he's building something there that's very exciting. And I think, they're making a lot of interesting moves, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to be done because, they still lack a little bit of depth in some areas. Like, I think they should still bring in a left back. There's talk that maybe Baba from Chelsea could come back. I think that would be a good signing from them. And they want to bring in another attacking player. So, yeah, exciting stuff happening. Although the attacking player might be the next guy that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, well, that's it. The move forward with a loan move, haven't they? All the way from Turin, Juventus, and that's Marco Piazza. Obviously, an exciting young player, one that signed from Zagreb only over a year ago. A bit of a winger. I'm sorry, I don't really follow Serie A, more a Bundesliga man myself, as you may have guessed. But what type of player are they getting, Manu? And how exciting is this?
Yeah, we follow Croatia quite a bit on the Footballgrad network, and this is with footballgrad.com. So we actually had him featured in an article a year ago where we had the 5 most exciting prospects in the round of 16 of the UEFA Champions League. We're probably going to do something similar when Champions League comes closer again, from Eastern Europe. And he was one of the players on that list because he played an excellent Euro. And he was one of those prospects that everyone in Europe was after. I think a bunch of English Premier League clubs were after him as well. And then, he ruptured his ACL in March, and he's just come back from injury. So, Juventus are being really challenged for the title in Italy this year. They're only second, and Napoli looks like they're running away with it. And then, of course, they're straight into the Champions League only a month from now. So they don't have time to feed them back into getting playing time. And Schalke, on the other hand, they need someone right now who's ready, who has proven his quality and can step in right away and sort of help them cement that Champions League spot, get that extra cash so that they can sign players like Piazza on a full-time basis next summer, right? But they need someone right now to get them there. And they need also someone to help, someone like Teuchert and some of the other young players to sort of grow into their position. And they're getting exactly that. They're getting more depth up front, and they're getting proven depth up front, and which is, I think, going to be a big plus for them going forward. Because, Chris, we sort of said that Schalke, the project is really interesting and things that are happening are good, but they don't have that technical level that sides like Borussia Dortmund have right now.
Yeah, and this is, I don't know if it is a risk really, because as you said, he suffered an ACL injury, but both Heidel and Tedesco have spoken. Heidel said he's ready now. He's even hinted that he could stay possible than just the 6 months, but nothing's fixed in the contracts. But Tedesco's also spoken and said he's made a good recovery from his ACL injury and that he thinks he can help them straight away. So they must be happy that his recovery is pretty much done, really, and they can take him out to their midwinter training camp and get him ready for the Bundesliga second half kickoff in a couple of weeks. But he's certainly a player that will have a lot more experience from being around the European circuit, and I think this is what Schalke are trying to build towards, which why Manu is quite right in saying it is an exciting project, because they seem to be just pulling in some youth, but also youth with experience. And if you're trying to build for 4 or 5 years, not just an overnight project, if you're trying to build for a couple of seasons at a time, then this is the sort of signing you want to be making.
Yeah, most certainly, and I look forward to seeing a bit more of them, just like a few of the signings that we've mentioned today. But well, Manu, what does this mean for Ukrainian, the Ukrainian winger there, Conor Kaplanka? I mean, he was toyed to have to be a bit of a shining light there. He was exciting. A lot of teams were vying for him, but it hasn't really worked out, and he's not getting a great deal of playing time this season as well. I know, especially because I put him in my fantasy football team at the start of the season, and that was a wrong move.
Yeah, I know Conor Blanca, I think he was actually really good this year, Bryce. I think this was his first good year since leaving Ukraine, where we on the Footballgrad network followed him quite closely, where he played with Dnipro. And then he was linked with Liverpool and a bunch of other clubs. He ended up going to Sevilla, and that didn't really work out for him. And then last year at Schalke was a disaster for him. And then he went on Ukrainian television and fired Weinziel. And then everything turned out well for him. And then there was this rumor that Shakhtar Donetsk would take him and take him back to Ukraine. Reason for that is he can play Champions League football there. I don't see much in this rumor, to be honest, Bryce. Schalke have already firmly denied it. But I think that, Konoplyanka made that move abroad to play in a top league, and I just can't see him going back to Shakhtar Donetsk unless they come out and offer really crazy money. Remember, in Ukraine, taxes are very low for players. They're almost non-existent, actually. So, he can make a bit more money. But personally, I don't think this move back to Ukraine is going to happen.
But do you see him getting back to the form that he may have had, at Sevilla, like 2015, 2016? I mean, he was pretty good with goals and assists, for them, on the wing. But Schalke, it's been a bit of a tricky period for him.
I actually thought that he had a pretty decent Hinrunde, Bryce. I mean, yes, 1 goal and 4 assists he's not shooting out the lights, but, he's always contributing. He had several good games. He's a lot more active on the field. So, I wouldn't sell him right now, to be honest. And I think that he's just starting to develop into a player, again, that we've seen at Dnipro, and another move would sort of jeopardize that.
Yeah, I would imagine as well that Schalke would probably want to hold on to him at least to the end of the season, and then make bigger moves. But let's see what happens in the next few weeks. Guys, I suppose we're going to have to talk about Bayern as well. They've been fairly active. Let's talk about, we've got 2 big moves to talk about, but let's speak about Sandro Wagner first. Chris, we spoke about it a little bit before, but this is going to be a good move for him going forwards, but also for Bayern. I mean, all they had was Lewandowski, who we know is ever present. And scoring plenty, it's hard to avoid, a week where he doesn't score. But Sandro Wagner is going to give them another option up there and lighten a load for them.
Of course he is, because Lewandowski might be ever present, but he's also ever aging. So he needs help, doesn't he? He said it himself. He can't be relied upon to play week in, week out, midweek in the Champions League. Also, to be then carry the side. Goal-wise, he will need a rest. He's got to rest and recuperate at times. So yeah, if you look at the options that Bayern had for centre forwards, it was Lewandowski or Muller, or Robben can play there, I suppose, if he really had to. But now Wagner's in, it gives them that extra ability to chop and change when needed. So I'm pretty sure he's not going to outstart Lewandowski because of just how many goals Lewandowski scores. So what he does offer is someone to come on, potentially if they're up or if they need a plan B. They've also got contingency for the Champions League now, so they can max it up. And if Sandro Wagner starts in the Champions League and Lewandowski doesn't, I don't think that's a weaker Bayern at all. I think it's still a strong Bayern, especially with the players who they can play behind him. So it's a good move for him. It's a good move for the club, especially for Bayern Munich. I'm pretty sure it's not the best of things for Hoffenheim, but I'm sure they'll deal with it as they normally do when they lose a player. But I'm more concerned for him with the World Cup coming up. He's got to get enough games, but I'm pretty sure he won't have moved there if he'd been told, look, you're going to be second fiddle and you're going to spend most of the second half of the season on the bench. So he must have had assurances from the Bayern hierarchy that he's going to get his fair share of games. We'll just see if that happens. If Bayern go out early in the Champions League knockout stages, that'll have a knock-on effect. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting time for him. I think he's going to be more key for next season. And this is why, again, they've bought him with an eye on next season as well as maybe the second half of this season. But it's going to be a good signing for him. And if he can capture that form price that we saw at Hoffenheim, especially early on last season, I think they've got themselves a very good player for not just now, but for next couple of seasons as well.
And Joachim Löw actually backed this move. Apparently, Sandro Wagner spoke to Joachim Löw and asked him what would be best for his future. And Joachim Löw actually told him that going to Bayern, he doesn't see it as him being jeopardized, his future being jeopardized in the national team because of that. So he's got the blessing from the Bundestrainer. What could possibly go wrong? Actually, I know one thing. I have one thing that could go wrong. Can someone just tell him to get a different jersey number?
Yeah, two's an odd number for a striker, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just, that's just the worst.
How does this come about? I mean, there was plenty of jokes that he is going to be second choice, so he is number 2. But I'm pretty sure that wasn't the intent. Why does he end up with shirt number 2? Was it his decision, the club's?
It was his decision because number 14 was taken, and then it was his second try at Bayern, so he decided he would go with the number 2 because of that. Sandro, do everyone a favor and get a different number for next season because this is no good.
That's just a terrible reason as well.
Yeah, it's a horrible reason. But
Oh, well, I hope that he gets more than 2 goals. Eh? I'm sure he will. But guys, a big topic at the moment is Leon Goretzka and where he's going to end up. I feel like we probably have to go to Manu on this so that he can upset some Liverpool fans. You seem to be good at that in the past, but you pod with 2 Liverpool fans, so it seems like things are pointing that he's going to sign for Bayern. It doesn't seem to be like a very well kept secret at the moment, even though it has not been made official just yet. So Manu, is this the case? Is he going to Bayern? Will he turn down Liverpool, or will Liverpool not even an option?
Well, it seems like everyone knew about Leon Goretzka going to Bayern except for Jürgen Klopp and Christian Heidel. Because it seems like they're the only 2 that are not on board. Every single serious German media outlet in Germany is more or less reporting this deal is done and wrapped up. I mean, the Kicker today ran a story saying, what was it called? The ways Bayern could announce the signing in the coming days. I mean, this is serious stuff. Kicker only report things when they're done. Now, Chris will probably be able to talk a little bit more. We want to keep the Liverpool part a little bit smaller, right? Because we talk mainly about the Bundesliga here. But from what I understand, Goretzka has also been talking a bit to Liverpool, and there was a chance that Liverpool could have signed him, but from what I understand is that this deal with Bayern was already more or less agreed upon, although that's technically not allowed, last summer. And then Goretzka only wanted Bayern for the last few months, and then sort of started wavering around Christmas time, mid-December-ish, started wavering, looked at other options. Barca was a very good option as well. He was in talks with Barca. Apparently, Barca seemed very confident at some point that they could get him. And then Bayern dropped this bomb. And I say Bayern because from what I've heard is that Bayern have leaked to the press that the deal was done. And this was done on December 31st. So, the first Christmas rocket was lit up just outside the Sebener Straße at 6 p.m., a little early. But, it had a big effect and the internet went wild. And, that's basically where we stand, is that Bayern are very sure that they got their man. They're not saying that they have, but, they're pretty sure they got their man. But, the problem with this is that, of course, we have our connections elsewhere as well, right, Chris? And we know from other sources that there has been some other things going on as well.
Yeah, so I think this is a case where a player says something in passing, and I don't think it is any secret that they were talking back all the way in September, where they Goretzka and Bayern, and there was supposedly a deal in place. Now, as you quite rightly say, you can't have a deal in place because you can only do that when there's 6 months in contract left, which is now January, so he's free to talk to whoever he wants. But for all intents and purposes, it hit the press last September. I think it may even been about August time that he was potentially thinking about it, but it went big in September, saying he would announce a deal, around about this time this year, and that looked to be it. But then, I believe he had his head slightly turned. I mean, you can only go off, what you hear and who you speak to, and you can't say for definite what's gone on. But it looks as though he may have had contact with other clubs. Liverpool, one of them, as Manu said. Barca are quite keen, and Lionel Messi came out the other day, didn't he, and said that he gave his blessing to go out and sign Leon Goretzka, which I think is probably the biggest Barcelona backing you can get. But there's rumblings in the northwest that he'd potentially given his word to Jurgen Klopp. I don't know the truth behind that. Maybe only Jurgen Klopp and Leon Goretzka would know that, but I don't think there's anything behind the rumours, Manu, that Bayern leaked this to maybe bring his head back in line to say, actually, pal, you and us agreed a deal a while ago, and you should remember that before you start giving your word to other clubs.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. I mean, we think that's what happened. To correct that, no, it's quite telling that, you know, when you talk to some people outside of Munich, we thought that this deal that he would be going somewhere else. When they heard all about that in the second half of December, and then I think Bayern more or less must have gotten wind of it and said, like, look, we're just going to put our cards on the table here and say how it is through the press, and that caused a huge earthquake, not just, you know, in Germany. You know, Heidel has now said on several occasions that he doesn't know. He still believes that there's a chance that Goretzka could sign a new deal. But, you know, Bayern is so adamant that they got their man. But Chris, there is a precedent for this, because I remember in 2002, Sebastian Kehl had more or less done the same thing. He had a deal with Bayern in place, and everything was more or less done. And then in the last moment, he signed for Borussia Dortmund and left Bayern in the dust. So, you know, everything is always possible in football. But I think this is just how I see it. There is there's a few clubs in world football that, as an agent and as a player, you don't want to have on the wrong side, and Bayern are one of them because they're so influential, right? So you know, once you have made an agreement with them, it's very hard to step away from that.
I think what it does add is it adds fuel to the fire that something definitely did go on, because I don't see any reason for Bayern to allegedly leak a story to say they'd signed him unless they felt threatened by it. So I think there's obviously there's no smoke without fire, and I think this is that in this case that they were obviously a little bit paranoid that he had spoken to Liverpool as well as Barcelona, and maybe he was getting his head turned. But yeah, you're quite right. You don't know what's going to happen until it's signed. You know, football players, we all like to love them, don't they? But in the end of the day, they're quite mercenary, and we see that all the time from players moving from one club to another, direct rivals, and this happens all over Europe. Money talks, although if he does go to Bayern, I don't think this would be about money. There's all sorts of crazy rumours floating in the northwest of England about signing on fees that Liverpool have offered, which is unbelievable sums of money. So if he doesn't go to Liverpool, he's certainly not going to Bayern for money. Maybe he's going for his future. Bayern will be straight into his ear saying, I think we spoke about this the other day, Manu. I said that I wouldn't be surprised if they said to him, you know, German captains come and play at Bayern, and you just have to look at who's in Bayern's squad and where would he start. Obviously, naturally, he's a central midfielder, so who have we got? Thiago's out injured, although this is a long-term deal, but he would be pretty good to start straight away. Vidal looks like he could be going out, so the only dedicated central midfielder they have after that is Tolisso. Obviously, Ruddy can play there, as can Martinez, but the thing with Leon Goretzka is he offers that ability to switch it around and change a bit. He can play on the right side of the midfield, or he can even play on the right wing. So then again, you're looking at, who can play there? Koeman can play there. Can play attacking midfielder. Ribéry, obviously getting older all the time. Robben can play on the right wing, getting older again. So I could see that Bayern would be in his ear to say, if you come here, we may be heavy on players at the moment in these positions, but give or take 2 leaving, 1 looks like he's definitely going to be sold. So, you know, if I was Sandro Wagner, I'd be knocking on the door for shirt number 23. That's quite a nice number to have for next season. I think that it would make sense for Bayern to try and capture their man, because he fills a lot of holes for them. And I think we all saw how well he can play in the Confederation Cup. Manu, you were there. You saw it with your own eyes in front of you, not via the television. So you'll have seen a lot more than you see in the ground. Off the ball runs, movement, positioning. If you're just watching on the television, this is why I like going in the press box so much, because you get to see everything with your own eyes. You're not prescribed to by the cameraman. So it's with your own eyes you see it. And Goretzka's an excellent player when looking at him outside of the camera, and what he does and what he offers in his movement and support he gives behind. And the fact that he can play on the right or go slightly forward or play central, he's that good a player. I wouldn't be surprised if they could drop him deep. Look at what Tedesco's done with Max Meyer. He's dropped him down and made him an excellent defensive midfielder. I'm not saying he'd do that at Bayern, Barcelona, Liverpool, but he may have the ability to play in more than the 3 positions that we know now. So I think that's why Bayern are so keen to tie him up. And also, he's German. He's a German national side player, and Bayern Munich are the standout German side. They're the main flag carrier for the league. So I can see why Bayern would be very, very keen to get him, but also I can see why Jurgen Klopp would be keen to pair him up with Naby Keita, because that would be an excellent midfield again, which would strike fear not just into the Premier League but also into the Champions League or the Europa League or wherever Liverpool end up. So it's an interesting one, and I think there's some words being given out to people and then other words being given out to other people, and it's a bit of a messy situation, which I think, Manu, is why we're seeing it played out so publicly.
Yeah, I think that nails it down pretty much. Maybe just on the playing aspect, to round this up, Chris, I think if Bayern goes and gets Goretzka, which I personally think is very, very likely, they will get a player that they hadn't had since Stefan Effenberg. Maybe Michael Ballack was similar kind of player, but that dominant midfield presence that wins them the Champions League. They will get that in Leon Goretzka, and I think they will go all out to get their man. And I could even see, with everything that's just gone on, with Liverpool, the sign-on fee, I could even see them picking up the phone. Hoeneß personally picking up the phone and phoning Neubauer, Goretzka's agent, and says, what has Liverpool offered? We'll double it. He'll do it. He'll get his man, because they need him. They need him to secure the future, and they need him to become that force that they wanted to be for such a long time. And I think, when you have someone like Jupp Heynckes, who now looks to stay on for maybe another season, speak so highly of a player, then, it's definitely something is in the bush. And I can see Hoeneß now putting everything in motion to make sure that the agreement that was given in the summer will now be honored.
And as you said, Manu, before we started recording, Bayern are being very, very clever. Like Jupp Heynckes saying, I'm sure he knows what's good for him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like The Godfather, isn't it?
But Manu, just before we wrap it up, may I ask, what is Jupp Heynckes' reputation like previous record, I suppose would have been the right way to describe it, with youngsters like this?
Excellent. Absolutely excellent, Bryce. He's very good. More as a mentor, not as a coach. A lot of the coaching is done by Hermann and Hermann Gerland. They're sort of the training brains behind it. Heynckes is a leader, a personality as a leader. Honigstein was on a pod. I guess that's now almost a month ago, and he explained that to us quite well. And I think Heynckes is very good in nurturing and developing players on character-wise, because Goretzka, physically and playing-wise, he's already there. He needs to sharpen his profile. He needs to sharpen his character, and Heynckes is just the perfect man to do that. And I think the way Bayern play that dominant kind of football that the German national team also plays would suit him perfectly to go there and play there. And I think deep down Goretzka also knows this.
Yeah, so he's in good hands by the looks of things, which is also going to benefit the German national side in years to come. But guys, I think that more or less does it. I think we've managed to get through all the transfers, and as I said, we've had plenty to talk about, even though we've had nothing on the fields. No games until the 12th again, so we're getting closer. We're getting there. That first game back will be Bayer Leverkusen versus Bayern Munich, which I am eagerly waiting for. But guys, what have you got going on this week? Let's go to Chris. Before we pod again, what have you got going on and would like to, point out to people?
Obviously this pod is going to attract, I think, quite a lot of Liverpool fans, because it'll be about Leon Goretzka. You can find me at This Is Anfield doing live blogs the whole of January for Liverpool's fixtures. But at the minute, Bryce, I'm looking at why English players in particular are getting a chance in Germany that they're not really getting in England. And luckily enough, I'm speaking to a youth development coach over at Peterborough United and going to get his take on it with what potentially English clubs are missing out on when they're sending their youth players over to the Bundesliga.
Very exciting. Where will we be able to hear this, Chris, when it comes out?
Well, it'll be written format, Bryce. It won't be voice. And, of course, you'll be able to get it at fussballstat.com. And it'll be tweeted out via myself, which is Chris78Williams, and also via at Football Grad Live.
Lovely stuff. And Manuel, you're never that quiet. I barely remember. I think I remember once you took a day off. So what have you got going on? What would you like to draw people's attention to?
Yeah, I took last weekend off, Bryce. Over New Year's.
2 days. Wow.
Yeah, 2 days.
Good work. I hope you're well rested. You've sounded sprightly today.
I am very well rested. Thank you very much. And we have lots of things going on. I did a piece on the Brazilian Yo. Some may remember he was a big striker at CSKA. Failed at Manchester City. He's just signed in Japan. So kind of looking back at his career, a little bit of a nostalgic piece. And there's a piece on fußballstadt.com on Schalke and the future and the good things that Tedesco are doing there with bringing in the likes of Teuchert and Piazza, of course. And yeah, so that's all happening on Fußballstadt on footballgrad.com. And then, yeah, Golazzo podcast is coming back today, right, Bryce? So that's pretty exciting.
Yes, it is. We're going straight to that after this.
So that's why we went early.
Yeah, there we go. We're trying to shuffle both podcasts and... Yeah, we're going to be on for another few hours, but Mexican football returns this weekend, so that's something for us to look forward to. But as always, guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast, please head over to the likes of iTunes and give us some positive feedback. If you want to get in touch on Twitter, we would appreciate it. You can ask any questions, or if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, we're all ears. But yeah, we're going to have some football to talk about, hopefully, in the next pods. And you can find me on Twitter at Bryce Dunn 11. And yeah, until then, auf Wiedersehen.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen, dich abzuholen.
We can get anything delivered from furniture to toilet paper. And now, adult beverages with Drizzly. Drizzly lets you compare prices from local liquor stores on a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits, then get them delivered right to your door in under 60 minutes. And right now, Drizzly's giving all new customers $5 off their first order. Just enter promo code EASY5 at checkout. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.
What's up, folks? Anthony Armstrong here, former NFL receiver and host of Believe in Commanders. And with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. It's a league specifically created for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. Make your way over to prizepicks.com/believe and use the code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for a first deposit match up to $100. You must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details. Pick more or pick less. It's that easy. Prize Picks.